Hello, storytellers, storytelling Ron. So this is about Israel and what's going on, but this is this article here is really relevant to this. Report: Independent inquiry discovers dozens of Afghan men and children victims of alleged extrajudicial killings by British special forces during the war 10 years ago, 10 whatever, in the Afghan war. So what's going on is all these liberal, left-wing, secular lawyers and documentarians are creating this whole propaganda, whatever, to say that the British special forces may have killed some people, executed them wrongly or unfairly during a war. Okay, Islam uses human shields all the time. That's what they're doing in Israel today. That's what they've done throughout history. They use human shields. They believe in slavery. They believe that every man should have 4+ wives, chattel. They treat them like chattel. Women are inferior. They have harems. They have harems. They have harems today. They have harems. They during war, they would take all the women, pull them together, hundreds of thousands during any kind of war, during the Ottoman Empire, as slaves, as victims, rape victims for the soldiers. It wouldn't be like prostitutes following them. They would capture them and enslave them in encampments. And it was a horrifying way to die. The Barbary Coast Pirates is all about abducting women and forcing them into harems, slavery into harems. And they would die. That would be the end of it. They would die that way. In America, we had African slaves, but how did it end? It ended with them flourishing here in America. In the Middle East, they had way more slaves. They're all gone. Pretty much gone because they're killed off after they use them. That's how evil and horrifying this is, and how we capitulate in the West. The left, the progressives, the Democrats capitulate to Islam. They capitulate to slavery, to tyranny, to genocide. They do right. They capitulate. They support it in their heart, and God has made sure that it's in their heart. So here, they're just looking for ways to weaken our resolve as crusaders, as Christians, as strong men. And this is one way they're doing it. They're getting people, family members, to claim all this stuff. So it's just, all it is personal accounts and then maybe a couple of emails that are iffy from the British officers during war. And so now they're doing an investigation they don't care if that succeeds or not. They want to make sure that they just put fear into crusaders, into men. They want to castrate us and force us all to feel this fear. Like I live in Hollywood and I have a fear of defending myself. I actually have a fear of defending myself and my family because I will be taken away. I do not confront the homeless or the petty crime out in Hollywood or LA. I don't, and none of us do, because we fear that we will be arrested. That is what they want. They want us to capitulate. They want to castrate us, and they want to weaken us. And that's in the heart of everything they do. So they're not allowing law enforcement to be law enforcement here in LA. And they're not allowing it. They don't want it to happen here. They want to put fear into us. They constantly do that. And we capitulate as well. We weaken our resolve. And now they're flooding. Where's my freaking mouse? Now they're flooding the West with Islam. And look, gas the Jews. They're chanting that in Australia. They're pro-Palestinian in Toronto. In Spain, huge groups of people who actually don't. These are not their countries. Their countries are in the Middle East, and these countries are armpits. They're oppressive, and then they come here, and they suck off the teat of liberty, and then they're going to bite it, and they're going to destroy it. And that's at the heart of. Well, the left, right? The woke do that. The woke will go into Dungeons and Dragons. They'll go into Hollywood. They'll go into football, and they will destroy it. They will conquer it and destroy it. That's all they want to do. They will impose their own ideology on it. And that's what's happening here in London. This is Chicago. Look at the massive amount of people. Could the Israelites, the Jews, and the Jewish people in Chicago bring up this kind of massive group, or like what they did at BLM? This is in New York. This is in Washington State. And the one thing I say to the Israelites is they need to start calling out to God in these protests, because that's all you've got. Apparently I feel like America is Babylon, in the end times, and Babylon has fallen. We don't have elections here anymore. I don't believe we do. I don't know how they run. I don't know how to verify that my vote actually counted. Another thing interesting is that the Israelites don't actually have a Second Amendment, so most of them are not armed. So this article talks about that. America, we still have our weapons, and in Israel, they may be able to be allowed a pistol and 50 bullets. I don't know how the heck Israel has a very strong progressive element. I know that, and Netanyahu, I haven't really been paying attention to politics there, but I do remember a few years back when he came through and was welcomed by the conservatives. He was talking about how difficult it was in Israel, and the progressives are incredibly strong there. So, so for them to not have that's amazing that they're not allowed to own as many guns as they can have. I mean, the people are drafted. They're obviously trained on how to use weapons, and yet they don't have guns. That is crazy. How the hell did that get passed? How did Netanyahu let that pass? And I know obviously the progressives want to have that. They want to disarm you, and they want to have these. So this is in Israel. This is Tel Aviv. This is Pride Month, or whatever. And so they're going to have. This is the fall of Israel, biblically. So they've been warned. They've been warned here in their very own sacred text. Joshua 23. The Lord has driven out great and powerful nations before you, and to this day no one can stand against you. One of you can put 1,000 to flight, because the Lord your God fights for you, just as he promised. Therefore, watch yourselves carefully that you love the Lord your God. For if you turn away and cling to the rest of these nations that remain among you, and if you intermarry and associate with them, know for sure that the Lord your God will no longer drive out these nations before you. Instead, they will become for you a snare and a trap, which is exactly what's going on. A scourge in your sides and thorns in your eyes, until you perish from this good land, and the Lord God has given you. So, it's already warned there, and it's warned repeatedly, and the entire story of Israel is this exact thing that's happening that Joshua describes here. That's exactly what happens in Kings and Chronicles. It's very depressing to read it, that they constantly give in to the pagans, the nations all around them, and God says, I'm done with it. And I mean, that's exactly what's happening. They do this, plus they were allowing like 20,000 Hamas people to come into Israel to work, so cheap labor. Why are you doing that? They're the enemy, and I know we all want peace. We want to get along, but Islam says no to that. Islam means submit. It means forcibly converting you or enslaving you and killing Jews. It says it repeatedly in the Quran. And you know what? I'm not even angry at Muslims. I don't have a hatred for Muslims, because here's why. They're saying exactly what they're going to do. Who I, hate or am angry at is the left, is secularists, progressives, because they weaken the resolve of men in the West. They purposely do that. They knowingly or in their hearts, or God's put it there. They're the ones that make us the weakest. During the British Empire, the colonial times, that's why they're going after colonizers. During the colonial times, that's when the Christianity was incredibly strong, and the ministries and mission work was incredibly strong, going across the world and spreading the message of the gospel. Because the British imperial soldiers and officers were badasses. They didn't take crap from anyone. They shut down the Muslim terrorists. They shut down, the Ottoman Empire, the Saudi Arabia. They shut it all down. They shut off the slave trade. They shut down all that they were doing, so that modernized everything, civilized everything, in the 80s when I was a kid, or 70s and 80s when I was a kid, as an American, we had a pride, arrogance, gratefulness. I felt there was more gratefulness that we can go around the world anywhere we wanted. We could tour any place. We can go to Egypt, and Egypt had a secular government at the time. They mocked the terrorist thing because of Britain, because of the empire, because of the way how we pushed and were crusaders, successful crusaders. The culmination of crusades successfully, in the 19th century, 20th century, early 20th century, we could go around all these nations and tour and be completely safe. And those countries were generally safe, generally speaking. But today, as a kid, I remember a teacher showing us a slideshow of Egypt and how they were just, traveling around, looking around, enjoying it all. Can't do that today. I mean, you can do it in spots and bits, and you got to be in groups. But as far as individuals going around, no. The terrorism, the Crusaders have been castrated. We've been castrated, and I want to make some excuses for myself because I've only been a Christian like 10, 12 years now, 15 years maybe. And, still, and only like in the last 5 or 6 have I kind of, sort of gotten it down. So I want to make those kind of excuses for me. And what I'm doing is this is my ministry. The Dark Ages, doing the role-playing game that's going to the RPG culture, because that's what I know. That's what I've part of. And it's goofy, it's childish, but it's important because it's a huge, the RPG culture is huge, and and that's an insidious, the woke and the insidiousness of it, of the progressives have taken it over, feminized it, castrated it, capitulated it. Soon they'll be having Muslim things in it, obviously, for sure. The left will always side with Islam. They will always side with Islam. The socialists, the left will always side with Islam because tyranny, genocide, slavery, and tyrants is what they worship. The government, if they say the government's going to help you, that's tyranny, that's slavery. They want to take away your guns. They can't do genocide if Americans are armed. Sorry, I'm going to keep talking. We have to stop allowing them. We have to rebuke them. We have to rebuke them, on YouTube. We have to rebuke them on the streets. But I would say, but the biggest thing is to have a strong church. Support your church. Have a fellowship of men who are brave, courageous, and become activists, political men. And why the reason I say men is, well, just to jab people, the left and the side, and dog it as far as having women do it. The women are strong and they're doing it now, but that's sadly because men are not stepping up. The women are having to do it, and sadly that. So I wish that women were not part of the leadership. I don't mind it necessarily, but the main reason they probably are is because the men are not there. The men of courage, the Crusader men are not there. And so these women have to step up, so that's depressing. Anyway, so I'm tired. Again, I don't hate Islam because Islam is doing exactly what they say they're doing. Who I hate or I'm angry at is us. Is how we are allowing this to happen? It's going to happen here in the U.S. It's already going to start happening. It's already happened. It's going to happen again. I'm stuck here in LA. I wish I could get out, but my wife and I are stuck here because our daughters are here and they don't want to move. So we may be. I'm like, we could be just like Israel at some point. I don't know, but it's sad to think that I can't believe the Israelites were disarmed like that. I assumed that because they all get drafted, they all should be able to have their weapons, their assault weapons with them. And I remember seeing like documentaries about them being able to have be armed, but no, I think the case is they're not allowed. That's crazy. That's suicide right there. God says be armed, be ready, and they, and the Jews that have done this, they've allowed themselves to suffer, and they fell when Jesus died, when Jesus was crucified. Yes, the Jews did this. When he died, they failed for 1900 years. Israel did not exist. To me, that's like a clue, you Jews, to come to Christ. But I still love. I'm going to do another video on the Jews. I still love the Jews, the chosen people of God. I still love them. But obviously, Jesus Christ is the Lord and Savior. And the Jews are the enemy of the word. So there is that. And I'll get more into that in another video. But this is just about the capitulation that we have, the surrender. We are allowing ourselves to be castrated by our own the left people, the pagans in our own midst. And then Islam comes in and attacks. And the reason they're so strong is because we're allowing it. That's why they're so strong. And they have guns and they have wealth and they have slavery today and they have harems and all that because we let them. That's what happened to the Barbary Coastal Pirates. We let them do that. We didn't fight against them. America finally did, but Europe didn't. They paid them off instead of fighting. And that's what's happening today. We're trying to pay them off, and look what's happening. and we don't have men of valor, men of crusaders. We're all ashamed of the Crusades. We're all ashamed of the Inquisition. We're all ashamed of what the Catholic Church did. I'm just so you know, as a Protestant, as a Reformed Baptist or whatever, I'm a Calvinist. I really love the Catholic history, the Church, and I know I dog it in the sense of theology and stuff. But just Catholics, just so you know, I still have very fond, not memories, very fond, whatever, of reading and researching what what you did in medieval history, especially. Okay, thanks for listening and watching. Pray for God's will. Pray for God's will in all of this, and pray that we return to God's will in all of this. That the Israelites return back to God's will, and especially accept Jesus Christ. But that we of Christian men are return back to God's will, and we lift up our man up. We man up. It says to man up. God tells us to man up. I really love that in Job. Lift up our breeches or whatever. Man up and and hear God's word and hear His will, not ours. Anyway, so in my little tidbit corner of role-playing games, this is my little goofy thing I'm doing for the Lord because I love the Lord and can't stop. Anyway, in the game of life, roll holy dice.